So what, how and why on each band I thought would be useful. As far as 70 goes, that's what I run at home, 19 LE toner with a modified ADM driven element, of which somebody discovered there's one lying outside. That's my portable one. If you want to have a look at that modified driven element, Dave ADM talked about it last year, this self-balancing ballon or something. Brilliant, really, really worthwhile doing if you've got a 19 element toner. Masthead box with an SPF preamp and filter at the masthead. So that's what I run on 70. So 437 is now accepted as the UK 70 SEMS DATV frequency. It's actually in the RSGB band plan. Did you see that? Magic. 2 mega cymbals, 1/2 or 3/4 FEC. If Dave Mann was here, we'd be having that argument because I say F1/2 and he says 3/4. As far as I'm concerned, I haven't seen any amateur content that warrants yet more bitrate at the expense of dBs. So, the French are very active on 70, as we'll see shortly. Of course, they've done things slightly differently. They've adopted 1.5 mega cymbals and 2/3 FEC, and actually there's some logic to that. First of all, you know, you've gained another 1.5 dB, but also that apparently they've done a lot of work and reckon that for some reason 2/3 FEC is the fastest lock time on all of the set-top boxes that they've looked at.
When
so
it's fading, when it's going in and out of fading.
So maybe, just maybe, something to think about for the future that perhaps we ought to change. In terms of 437, a number of repeaters have now got an input, underline input. I was asked by somebody at lunchtime, could we get an output? No, there's no way Ofcom would ever approve a 2 megahertz wide output on 70 SEMS, so don't even bother thinking about applying. But certainly the input, a number of repeaters, I've listed a few there. I'm not sure if there's anybody else in the room knows of any more, but they're all horizontal and they actually require good filtering, particularly if you're on one of those.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Quality.
And the reason why you need that is 437, the receivers are fairly wide, the up converters we tend to use are very wide, and there's an awful lot of rubbish around 437. In particular, if you've got a 70 SEMS voice repeater close by, it will get right up it. I think NQ are going to really struggle to make that work. They've got a 70 SEMS beacon, a 70 SEMS analog repeater, and a 70 SEMS digital voice repeater, all on the same mast.
And they're trying to receive visual ATV.
So that will be interesting. Aerial-wise, at repeaters, it's generally something like a big wheel. I've actually got one in the car. I'll get it out and show it to you. I think it's Wemo in Germany manufacture a commercial one. If you've got £100 to spend, or you can build one out of car brake pipe, relatively simply. This is HV, by the way. These are the flat plates on 23, and that's the 70 SEM vertical. The legal position, there's been a little bit of noise on the forum. There's been an awful lot of noise in my email box about this. We have an understanding with Ofcom that additional receivers do not require NOVs on TV repeaters. That was established about 7 years ago with the Ofcom personnel at the time. It probably would not pay to advertise it too much, but you know, it is there and it is legal and it is understanding that we've got. However, you must comply with your NOV, so if your NOV says you've got a 1248 input, you must have a 1248 input. You can't just throw away your existing input on your NOV. You must have additional, but you must do what you originally said on your NOV.
No, could I just add, having handed over the responsibility of the ETC representation to you a bit earlier this year, Nolan said it's absolutely correct. If there are TV repeater keepers here who are thinking of adding 77 digital receivers, please drop Noel a line with his email with his ETCC hat on, so that their records show that you.
Yeah. So for the benefit of the stream, Graham.
Just do it. Yeah. Do it. Don't advertise it too much, but tell them.
Yeah, Graham is saying that the ETCC must know what you're up to, so please just drop me an email if you're thinking of putting a 77s input on your repeater. So, Simplex stations, a number of stations have got 437 capability. I just listed a few. They all seem to be in the general area around me, but there's a load more people. If you know any more, yes. Ian, KDD, yeah.
436
Good. And we've talked about dxspot.tv. This is exactly the band. If you're running this, you need to be on dxspot.tv, because you know what? This stuff goes really well.
Can I just say, make a plea for automatic operation? Automatic receive.
In terms of?
Receive. In other words, you can just transfer to a repeater and
Right, yeah. So if you're putting it onto a repeater, please make sure it just automatically censors it. So the how-to of this is, if you've got a 77 Georgian preamp at the masthead, of course, because it's the only place to put a preamp, isn't it? The existing narrowband station will do. And for a preamp, the PGAs that are being built today could be used, or the SPF equivalent from Sam, more than adequate. You then need a filter. And this is the big question about 77s. And if anybody has got any ideas on easy designs for filters on 77s, we would love to make them known to the community, because generally what most of us are using are bits and pieces off eBay, or when we see something at rallies. I actually went scavenging in building 2 at lunchtime, because I remember when I was up in the summer I saw some UHF old telemetry radios, and I dragged one in and we've measured it, and unfortunately the filter in them, which is a discrete unit, isn't tight enough to be used. Otherwise we'd say, we've got some here. But we do need some easy to build designs for filters for 77s.
Not a CQTV a year or so ago.
Yes, you did. We'll republish it.
Or buy a DCI one, have you?
Or ID Electronic.
yeah.
But make a point. Ideally, you want ones that have got notches, so that you can sit notches on the top of the repeater. That might be 20, 30 miles.
Where do I find the spec for those?
Sorry?
I design filters. Where do I find the spec?
Oh, we can provide
You come and talk to us at coffee break.
It sounds like elliptic function.
Okay. So you've got your Yagi, you've got your preamp, you've got your filter, haven't you? And then you need one of these. CQTV 239. You buy these for £9 from the shop. Needs a couple of mods, and that takes it up to L-band, and you stick it into the back of your 20 quid receiver off eBay, and you are now receiving 77s digital. So we've got several of these if anybody wants to buy one. On transmit, well, as we just heard, you buy a DTX one or an SR Systems, which I use. They cover 77s directly. You then need a bit more oomph. Probably a PGA 103 will take it up to a reasonable level. And then, as well as DTX or SR Systems, you can go down the X broadcast route, but they're big, they're heavy, they're loud. It's not ideal these days, but what you've got yourself then is about a milliwatt on 77s digital. So you then need a PA, and there are X-Freeview ones that come up. There's a seller called Lang Technical. We think he works for Arkiva, and that's where I bought mine from. He sells some very nice CML units. None on there at the moment. A milliwatt in, 25 watts out. Fantastic unit. or alternatively,
Intended for digital as well.
the MOSFET, the 28 volt or 12 volt MOSFETs are ideal. DG0VE designs this unit, which is a 40 watt MOSFET brick, and this takes in basically 0 dBm. I put this on the end of my SR systems the other day, and I can drive this to 40 watts, no problem. So I think when I looked, I think they're about 190 euros, which I reckon was about 150 pounds. So that on the end of your SR or GTX will give you a good level of power. Oh, and then it says you need a filter. Guess what? We want some designs. We really do need to sort the filter issue out.
It's essential because it's harmonic content.
So where's Peter? Peter? Not here, DKC? Oh, he posted this on the forum the other day. You know, so why do we need to do this? Why get going on 70? Well, this is word for word what Peter quoted. He's now getting into GV on 70 on 437. A local hill 20 metres above him, 2 kilometres towards GV. 23 SEMS analog and digital are put to shame until the leaves and the trees go. So yes, 437 is doing it for me. And that's why this stuff goes where 1296 doesn't. You don't realise how fragile 1296 or 23 SEMS is until you've played with this stuff. It's easy to get high power and high gain aerials, and this is really where you can start to work the DX. So we've mentioned DX Spot this morning. These are 2 screen grabs I got off it the other day. So 70 SEMS DX that was reported in September on 70 versus 23 SEMS DX in the same period. A lot of short haul stuff. I mean, we had a good lift in September, it is true, but the really long haul stuff, there's Rob up in the northeast working down into IV, and then Peter and I worked quite a lot of stuff down in France, and I'll come on and cover a bit more about it. But that's why 70 is so interesting. It really has.
Was that all digital?
Yes.
That's all 70 SEMS digital.
And you had to be prepared to do different SRs.
So what was worked was Rob worked into GB3IV down in Portsmouth. G3PYB in Portsmouth worked down F9AGO, which I think is that one there. I worked F3YX in Paris, and that guy is one hell of a signal. He's been doing this stuff for years. He runs 400 watts into 4 19 element tonners, you know. And then
when the band was beginning to fade on 70, he F3YX.
it was relaying stuff from here.
Relaying 23 from the bottom of France and then going back out on 70 SEMS underneath.
But last but not least, 686 kilometres. Sorry, there's a bit of an unwritten contest between Peter and I. But note that the French use 144170 SSB for talkback. They do pop up on 750 FM, but that's what they tend to naturally use. And also, the majority of them, their English is about as good as my French, so it can be difficult at times, but you get there. So, in theory, some video. Is it playing there? No, of course it's not, is it? All right, I'll play the video separately. I had re-embedded them. I don't know why it's not. I know why.
When Rob was getting into the South Coast on 70 SEMS, that was with a receiver that had no preamp on it.
I'm running the wrong file. That was the early PowerPoint. Hang on a minute. So, a few clips of video to show this. So, Rob, Terry, you'll recognise that face. he was actually up Portable. He went out Portable, didn't he? I think from home, Portable up on the North Yorkshire moors. This probably isn't the best bit, but I like this piece because he's got a call sign and this card has got various locators on it, and whichever one he's at, he sort of points at. It's you'll see he's pointing at one particular one in a minute. As you can see, it wasn't. Yeah, look, he must have been in '94 Mike Julie at that time. Yeah.
You see the pixelation. Yeah, it's fading.
Yeah. F1 FY 686 kilometres, just to prove that I did. And then F3YX. This guy. This is his system, and it's just awesome. There's actually a video on YouTube where if you Google him on YouTube, where he's working on the tower and his wife is at the bottom picking up or doing some gardening or something, and he drops a metal bar and it misses her by about this much.
His aim's not very good. What did she say?
Not sure if there was any audio on it.
Pardon my French.
But this is his aerial array. I think if I...
North side of Paris. We see him quite often.
Yeah. I mean, he's pretty loud.
Many moons ago, we used to work. Clive and I used to working from Millington.
Yeah.
And you could always rely on a decent 77 contact.
On AM. Yeah.
You also see quite a lot of two guys on the Cherbourg Peninsula as well. F4 BNL.
And F9 BNF.
F9 ZG.
ZG, yeah. So anyway, good stuff. So the other thing I've been doing on 70 is / mobile. I've got the gear in the car. I had a play on the way up here, running one of these big wheels, Casman wheels, turnstiles or whatever. This is the best thing ever. Got a tow bar on the car, and it's rather an expensive German make, and I just couldn't bring myself to drill any holes in it. And it hasn't got a roof bar, and there was no way to attach any aerials to it at all until I found at a rally a mount that will go on the tow bar. It actually locks onto the actual ball of the tow bar. So now all hell is broken loose. I can do what I like now. So anyway, what we found is that 70 SEMS works RF-wise. It's very good, but QPSK doesn't work under multipath conditions, and this is really interesting. Any scattering of those carriers that Lawrence was talking about just destroys the signal, irrespective of the signal level. And so what I said earlier, and I didn't know the question was going to be asked, but OFDM is the answer to mobile. QPSK doesn't work, but OFDM 8 megahertz wide on 70 SEMS. Yeah, interesting.
Still outside. You don't have to worry.
So I've done I'll put this on, then I'll tell you what I'm thinking. So right, what is this? This is complicated. This is a shot of my desktop. GB3HV up there, my remote site here, an APRS tracker here to show where I was, and then to tune coming off that remote site, and aerial rotator, because the aerial rotator was being driven by the APRS. So what you're seeing here is the constellation on Tune, right? But there's no decode. It is not decoding, and it won't decode until you get absolutely clear. The carrier is quite strong, got a decode there, but as soon as you go down again, non-line of sight, even though the field strength is high, these start scattering and the decoder loses lock. You watch it in a moment. Look, it's gone. See, they're starting to scatter. It's lost it. Now, the interesting thing is, HV is starting to see me because I'm on a hill which looks at HV, but this receive site is here. And so as I go behind the hill, even though I'm only a mile or so away from this receive site, because it's scattering at this receive site, it doesn't decode.
The clues, they see the one in the top right-hand corner, transport stream lock.
Yeah. So, yes, HV at 10 miles away is now getting me because I'm line of sight, no multipath. Whereas, look at that scattering on those. Field strength, lots of field strength, loads of scattering.
It's much more scattering than that because that's sampled.
Yep. So, QPSK really isn't that interesting. Now, it'd be very interesting to retry that on OFDM. I'm sure nobody will notice that I'm running 8 megahertz wide for a couple of hours. So I'll let you know next year, all right?
Just a brief explanation of two-tune, Mike.
Does everybody know about two-tune? So this is a piece of software written by a lovely Frenchman who came to Basingstoke last year. And it is it takes the output from a satellite card and tells you all sorts of interesting parameters about the signal. It also does a decode. So you put it in a PC and it will decode. It will act as a normal satellite decoder. But it also, through his software, you can see all of these really interesting parameters going on. Really interesting piece of software. It does, however, need a very special satellite card, which occasionally appear on eBay. One was on last couple of weeks ago, went for £19. I don't know if anybody in the room bought it. But if you can get hold of one of these cards, this is really useful. Brian, do you use it to tune? Yeah. Really useful, yeah?
Does it need a particular video card?
No, it just needs a particular satellite card. But you cannot, I know of no other way in the amateur fraternity to get hold of that information, the constellation information, unless Brian is going to tell me otherwise. So come and see me afterwards. I've actually got a search set up on eBay, so I get an alert whenever those cards come up. I've now got more than I need, so I'm not interested, so I'll happily tell you what the card is and even email you when they come up. But that piece of software is brilliant. So before you get a decode, you can tell whether you're seeing that DX signal down in the noise by looking at that constellation. I can't believe I've put this up. The French and Dutch still use narrowband analog. It's true. You know, it is better. Now, for those of us who live in the modern age and haven't got an AM receiver, I've discovered very, very recently that there is a software package for these RTL dongles. You know, the cheap 10 quid dongles off eBay. There's actually an AM TV software package for that called TV Sharp. Did you know about this? Well, guess who told me about it? G8GKQ told me about this. And it's quite interesting anyway because the RTL dongle limits the RF bandwidth. So you end up with a naturally narrow AM TV receiver. So I managed to install it on Thursday and it certainly works. I didn't manage to do any tests with it. But that could be a quick and easy answer to somebody if you want to play with the French and the Dutch, because the French in particular still run AM 77s, and you've got one of these dongles already. Interesting, yes. Yes. Well worthwhile getting hold of. TV Sharp, I think if you Google for TV Sharp, you'll find it. And yeah, where was that? Didn't BATC do a 70 SEMS transmit board with a 100 meg crystal? Have you?
They're right up the top though, aren't they?
I don't know. It was a throwaway.
438.5.
So you know, that 70 SEMS is good. There's no question about it. I mean, if you remember, all of the DX in the 80s was done on 70, and we're just rediscovering, you know, really what they knew already. But TV Sharp. So good band. Oh look, I already wrote that. Everybody knew how good it was in the 70s. 2 megahertz DATVs bring it back to life. Some opportunities for good DX, you know. Give it a try. Works really, really well. It's good fun. The new band, very quickly, because guess what? We haven't really done much on this, have we? How are we doing for time? 9 SIMs, 3.4 gigs. So, overall, it's been a bad news story, but it's good news in some respects. 3.4 gig has been or is being reduced. Murray's out there. From 75 megs down to 10 megs. If you look on the web, the RSGB band plan shows exactly that. Currently, the only other users are narrowband boys at... actually, is that 0.1? No, it's megahertz high, so don't try and work anybody there. You won't hear anybody, all right? And a couple of years ago, Murray and I decided to stake a claim for ATV at the top end of the new reduced band. So if you look here on the RSGB band plan, it says 3402 to 3410, all modes. So we put in an application for GB3BA on 3406, and lo and behold, I have received the license. I've been so busy doing that stuff, I just haven't had a chance to get it on air. And we have now just received 2 other NOVs, 3404 GB3BH in Watford and 3406 KM up in the northeast. And the reason why these guys are interested, because they previously had NOVs or transmit outputs on 2440, which are clobbered by Wi-Fi. So their motivation was to be able to get away from the Wi-Fi and move up to 3.04, because guess what? There's no Wi-Fi up here. LTE, the reason why the band is being cleared here is because LTE will come in this segment.
Which has harsh, very harsh out-of-band emissions.
Yeah, but our filters are so good, Kevin. Where's Ofcom? Our filters are so good, it won't be a problem, will it? Shut up. So it's beginning to look like this 3403 to 3410 is becoming the TV subband, and you know, I think it'll be interesting to see how we get on. So the big question is, well, how well does it go? Well, in truth, we don't really know. Young Peter did some tests over a point-to-point line of sight path with Dave ADM a few years ago, and it worked really, really well. But that was a true line of sight path from Hog's Back out to North London. Yeah, so yes, it does go really well. It was used by wireless cameras who've now had to get out and go to other places because of LTE. And that, you know, the anecdotal evidence is that it worked as well as 2.4 gigs. So, you know, it looks as if it's got real potential, and we could, in theory, be the only user in that piece. We're MOD is primary user, so that's who are issuing the NOVs for us. So currently we've got 3 repeaters licensed. There's a couple more got applications in. There's no formal plans to do Simplex, but why not? We don't need another frequency. You know, we can use 3408 or whatever. It's not a big issue. So yes, Simplex is an opportunity. So how to get going? Well, guess what? Receive is relatively easy. You buy one of these. You don't need to modify it. Brian will gladly put some money in his little tin. In fact, Brian, I sold 3 at lunchtime. I don't know where you were, but you know. Mount it on a Sky Mini dish, which you can get free from your local tip. Feed it into your 20 quid Maplin receiver and tune it to 1744 if you want to receive 3406, because very confusing to begin with. You have to get your head around this one. The yellow is high, so you have to come down in frequency. So you take 5150 minus your signal frequency, and you end up with 1744. And that's it. You're up and running and receiving. Now, this next slide is totally wrong, because all you need to do is buy a DTX with version 2 software and it will do 3.4. However, at the moment, that's not quite true. Bottom line is you need to mix up probably from L-band. I'm probably going to use one of the Digilite VCOs running at 1450 megs, mix it with 1956 out of a DTX. This one actually, if you powered this one on, it would probably come up on 1956 because I've been playing with the demo unit. And that comes out at 3406. You then, I think KM is using a Digilite, aren't you? And the Ionica, the airspan board, yeah, which gets you out at about 0 dBm. Then what you need is one of these, which is an Ionica PA, because they're lovely. They take 1 milliwatt in, no, that's something different, and you get 15 watts out. Either that or you need to get really lucky at a rally. So I went to the Harwell rally just after Christmas and I saw this and it said, RF amplifier, 3.4 gigs. Then I looked at the thickness of the 12 volt cables. I looked at the thickness of those and thought, that's really interesting. So I gave the bloke 10 quid for it, went home and Googled it, and it's minus 6 dBm in, so below a milliwatt in, 50 watts out. You just have to get lucky.
Google WiMAX amplifier and they come up no.
Do they?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
With a big heatsink on.
There you go. I didn't get the heatsink. It's probably why mine was cheaper. Yeah.
You haven't got the power station.
Yeah, that's not the main thing either.
Okay. So 3.4 gigs is looking cool. Looks like a replacement. We don't know what it's going to be like, but it's easy to get on and receive. It looks as if it could be easier to get an NOV than on 1.3, although, you know, the Christmas present, birthday present process seems to have worked in our favour on 3.4. I call it that because, you know, every now and then we get an email saying you've got an NOV. It's not exactly a managed process. It's a, you know, Christmas present. As it happened, the 4 that came out last month came on Friday the 13th, which I thought was rather amusing. Receive is easy. Transmit, more difficult, but there are lots of cheap Ionica parts around. So, you know, go on, give it a try, particularly if you're seeing a repeater put on in your area. You know, that's got to be the answer. It's got to be an easy place to go. And, you know, I think we need to do a bit more experimentation to see exactly what it will do for us.
So in some cases, if you're a reasonable distance from your repeater, you can probably put the LNV with a simple horn. You don't even have to think about a dish. Just put it high up as you possibly can.
Yeah, or even just open LNB.
Very neighbour friendly.
I mean, you'd be all right with an open LNB, Terry?
When Rob's portable, 54 kilometres open LMD works good.
Yeah. So that's 3.4, and that's, you know, some of the experiences on digital. If there's any questions, that's we're about on time. So.
Have you received any experiences of people using these 77X Dolphin PAs?
The Nokia TTRXs.
Peter's got one.
There was one for sale out.
I've got one, but I haven't got round to.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Apparently, you have to be a bit careful not to fry them, don't you?
Yes.
Nokia TTRX's Dolphin PAs. Do they work? Yes, the mods are readily published and they do work, but I think you have to be careful.
You're absolutely sure you've got a good load on them.
Yeah, don't overdrive them. They are in theory capable. They're in theory capable of 300 watts, but the perceived wisdom is 100 watts.
Sideband, you might get 253 watts.
Yeah.
I just wonder if anybody's actually run them up at sort of 100 watt level. Or
Yeah. Yeah. Are they 28 volts? That one? Yeah.
I've got one out in the camper actually. We'll bring it in and try it out.
Yeah.
And you can depending on the mod you do, you can drive at sub-zero level, or you can miss out one stage. You
Yeah.
can go in at about.
Yeah, so various modifications on the web. If you just Google it.
Not to overdrive it.
Yeah. Yeah, there are tales around of people frying them, so just be a bit careful. But they do work well on 70. I'd forgotten that.
Just one other question. This is on the receive side. In days of FM, we were sort of running with...
On
27
70?
Well, more on
23, yeah.
We were running with receivers that were normally 27 meg wide.
Yeah.
And obviously we were missing a lot of SNR because
Yeah.
we were using a 16 or 18 meg wide transmission.
Yeah.
How does it work on digital? I mean, do they sort of convert down to baseband and process it all there, or is there an IF involved, or does anybody know how these cheap 30 quid receivers work?
I mean, Brian, you're probably more well placed to answer that than I am, really. I mean, as I understand it, they do direct IQ DMOD, don't they, these days?
The combination of the PLL, don't think of it in the classical filter
Yeah.
concept, that's no use to you. But the PLLs do, but typically these units, they don't go much below about 8 meg. The net result is that.
So
Yeah.
there's not a great deal to be had by putting tight RF...
An RF filter on the front end,
that's,
maybe.
That's the key to it all.
Yeah,
Is your
yeah.
RF filter, which is why we were saying...
So the question for the web was, what is the typical bandwidth of a typical DATV receiver? Can you benefit anything by putting RF filters on the front end? The answer is probably we haven't done too much scientific playing around. What I do know is, though, from the work you've done, halving the symbol rate does give you 2 to 3 dB. There's no question about that. So, you know, if you run 4 mega symbols and drop to 2 mega symbols, that's as good as doubling your power. So.
Can I just make a point? I've thought about this for ages, so I'll share it with everybody. We haven't got figures of goodness for these satellite receivers that are out there, digital satellite receivers. And I did think it might be useful to get a satellite, low power satellite DBS source with a suitable attenuator and plug it directly into the back of the receiver. And then
Well, that's what the French do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whack
So
the
the
attenuator down and
Yep.
just see what the threshold of detection is.
so the question,
And then say, yes, this one will work at minus 60 dB, whatever, or minus 70 as the case may be. I haven't seen anything published.
so I've
This is one article
so
coming out next CQC.
for the web, the question was, have we done any empirical testing on satellite receivers, digital satellite receivers? And the answer to that is Peter and I have done a bit, and there is going to be an article in CQTV next month, and he's about to throw me that dreaded receiver again, particularly based around the big sat. I've done some, but I don't really believe the results. I've set my SR systems to what I think was a known level on the analyzer, and then put it into an attenuator. And I mean, you can get locks doing that way down to minus 100, but I'm not sure that. Well, I mean, Brian, does that?
Yeah, it's probably right. But remember that the satellite LMBs normally have some gain. It doesn't.
Yeah, yeah.
Worry about.
It's probably an area where we need to do some scientific research.
Well,
Graham.
with analog receivers, there's a big wide range of difference, isn't there?
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean?
What we need to know is we
All
need a
the
chart.
receivers seem to have
The
this
difference
little
appears
block
to go with how recent this design of this is and how good the front end performs.
I don't think it's just the front end performance. I think it's also the DMOD decode.
There's a lot of work. I'm not what's knowing my presentation tomorrow about the ISS and ham TV on the ISS, but ham TV on the ISS is a digital downlink from the space station at 2.4 gigs. God help us. And the signal's going to be fading, and it's going to have a bit of Doppler. Don't worry about the Doppler. That's not going to have anything. But there's a lot of work being done around the world by people who are satellite people who are not TV people, who are ham TV people. So they're coming at this from a slightly different angle to us. And there is going to be an article in the American Hamsat Journal, which I have got agreement to reprint in CQTV. And there's a guy in California who is doing just this at the moment. And I've got a draft of his article.
But I think
he's analysing 3 or 4 different receivers.
so. For the web,
Again, how accurate that is, we'll
So for the web, Graham was just mentioning that there is going to be something in CQTV next time round based around the work that's being done for ISS. But I think the Albert's point is true, and one thing we could do is start to find agree some way of measuring, a measuring standard, and then, start to measure some receivers. Certainly, if you look back at that video, if you remember, there was one, the screen in the middle, I said was a receiver at my site, and then to tune underneath it. The receiver was actually an old professional receiver called an Altea, and it's very noticeable actually that doesn't get lock as much as the TV card into tune does. And I think there's a generation difference there between decodes, and I get the impression that the Big Sat is the latest generation and is probably even better than some of the stuff we're using now. So I think it's work that needs to be done.
Field test reckoned that this was 6